think we're just waiting on Janice and then we'll get started. Okay, amazing. So really excited for this panel session, and huge thank you to Jessica and her team for jumping in as a moderator for this session. Some of you folks, I have met your colleagues or team members, and then some folks like Nike and Andrea who have been dear friends for a long time. So excited to have everyone here and really grateful for Jessica for stepping in to moderate. So I'll turn it over to Jessica to get us rolling.
Yeah. Hi, everyone. I'm not sure if I'm on.
You are.
Okay, great. Hi, everyone. We are thrilled to be here today to discuss gender equity, building logic communities, and the advancement of women. I would like to give a very warm welcome to our panelists, Janice Omadeki, the founder and CEO of the Mentor Method, Andrea Limant, the founder and CEO of the Kindness Campaign, and Annani, the founder of African Family Firms. My name is Jessica Mackin, and I am the editor and co-publisher of the James Lane Post, and I'm filling in for my friend and colleague, Jacqueline Brennan, who is the co-founder of Feely and couldn't be here today, but she came up with these wonderful questions that I'm really excited to ask. So in general terms, by definition, logic stands for reasonable ways of thinking about something. Logic communities have built systems and principles where individuals reason and find ways to support each other through beliefs, core values, and preferences. So let's start with Janice. How does logic play a part in the Mentor Method, and which transforms company culture through mentorship? And how and why did you create this product?
Yes, I love this question, and thank you for asking. So Mentor Method, we are a solution that helps large companies build inclusive mentorship programs in under an hour in order to make workplaces more equitable for women, people of color, LGBTQ+, and military veterans. The Mentor Method exists because of my own experiences in corporate America, where anytime I signed up for a corporate mentorship program, I was just matched to the only other woman that was available to engage in that program. And that was the basis of building that connection. And so when you talk about logic, for me, it was completely illogical to build these meaningful relationships, and one of the most important relationships a woman can have in her career based on her age, race, and gender, when friendships, romantic engagements, anything else that's meaningful to you that involves another person requires chemistry to want you to continue returning back and building that relationship. So with our solution and patent pending algorithm, we've brought the logic into the way in which we're fostering those meaningful connections.
Wonderful. Well, thank you so much. And so for Andrea, my next question is, how would you describe using logic at the core of making decisions surrounding curriculum and structure for the Kindness Campaign?
Yeah, and since founding the Kindness Campaign, the fundamental belief of I am enough, which I believe all of you here who's joined us and taken the time to be with us today are enough. And at its core of everything we do and create is that belief. And from all of our programs and our curriculum, it is from this foundation that our pillars of self-image and empathy and emotional awareness, and really that our communities and everything that they stem from. So by having that solid foundation and that core, this allows us to build out and really create systems of support for all of those that are seeking a mental and emotional health. And really that is where that logic and where we base those decisions and surround ourselves from those big decisions from.
Wonderful, thank you so much. Okay, so for Nike, when thinking about creating legacy for generations, how does logic help you through a set of processes or systems implemented for the families that you serve?
That's an excellent question, because when you're building a multi-generational family enterprise, there's lots of moving parts. Even at the static, you've got the family on one side, and you've got business on the other. One is typically deemed as irrational and emotional, and the other is deemed as, very rational and, systems thinking. And quite often that can lead to decisions that are made that are not necessarily rational. So I try to help folks, distill that and get clear on the fact that we've got two competing systems: family system, which is based on, unconditional love, equal treatment of all family members. But on the other side, the business system, which is a lot more cutthroat, based on productivity, profits, based on, not being treated equally, being remunerated for one's contribution. So there's that element of it. And then there's the element of, as we are planning as a family and we're trying to build for legacy, there's so many directions we can be going in, from even what do we do with the existing business? Are we going to expand into new areas? Are we going to invest in the latest fad? Are we going to completely transform? Are we going to start a foundation? And core to distilling all these many options is really getting clear on who are we? So what's our shared beliefs? What's our shared values? What's our shared vision? And that's really helpful in distilling all the many options so we can come together and co-create where we're heading towards.
Thank you so much. So now I'd like to dive into something that I think we're all extremely passionate about, the UN Sustainable Development Goal 5, gender equality and how it affects the advancement of women through our work. So right now in 18 countries, husbands can legally prevent their wives from working. In 39 countries, daughters and sons do not have equal inheritance rights. And in 49 countries, they lack the laws protecting women from domestic violence. So I'd also like to ask you how African-American firms is playing a role in women having equal inheritance rights, land ownership, and more opportunities in general for education and to advance in today's society.
So African family firms are mandated to promote generational wealth, generational legacies on the African continent through generational businesses. And as an organization, we are very passionate about the role of gender equity. And as you've kind of alluded to in your question, there's been unequal rights for women in terms of land ownership, in terms of inheritance rights. It's huge across the African continent, and also in terms of access to education. Our role is really with advocacy. So as an organization, we have members across most regions in the African continent. Our goal is to establish communities in each of the 54 countries in Africa. However, we are dominant in 6 of the countries, and we're active in advocacy, pushing for equal land ownership rights, inheritance on one side. And on the other, there's also a lot of cultural norms. There's what the law says, but there's also what we do within our families and our businesses that really can shift the dial a lot with gender equity. So in a lot of family enterprises, it still stands that the oldest male will inherit the business or will be the leader of a business, thereby displacing the women from access to wealth, and they are seen to marry off into their families and to fend off for themselves. And on a continent where poverty, unfortunately, still remains an issue, that can put females at a huge disadvantage. So we do a lot in terms of advocacy, educating our families. How can we create more gender inclusive family enterprises? Because it just so happens that the more inclusive enterprises are the more successful ones. And beyond even just thinking through the performance side, it's really what is ethical and what is right.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for that answer. And so next I would want to bring up the wage gap. And so women in the United States are paid 82 cents for every dollar paid to men. And so that amounts to a wage gap of about $10,000 per year. Basically, it would take an extra 42 days of work for a woman to earn what men do each year. So this is a question for Janice. Please tell us a little more about the mentor method and the work that your company is doing related to the pay gap within the US workforce.
Of course. So studies have shown that professionals that are mentored end up getting paid significantly more than those that are not through a professional or structured mentorship program. So for us, it's foundational to ensure that underrepresented professionals, again, women, people of color, LGBTQ+, and military veterans, are given that fair opportunity to close that gap. As I mentioned before, we're a tool that helps companies build inclusive mentorship programs in under an hour, but we also provide training inside our solution. So we have training on what it takes to be a successful mentor, successful mentee, for program leaders to implement these programs effectively. And we've gone further to ensure that especially women have content on our platform focused on career development. And an example of that, in my own career, I more than doubled my salary in 5 years to get to a 6-figure pay range. And I paid off all of my debt, so student loans, car, anything else, before the age of 30. And our company culture, our values are trust, honesty, and communication. And we reflect that even in the tools and resources that we provide our team by being able to share cheat codes on how you can advance your own career, whether that's making sure you're in a strong position, debt-free, so that you can start making, bolder choices in the way in which you're approaching your career or otherwise. Also, just through our tool and connecting professionals to mentors, we make sure that women are matched to the right mentors. So not just anyone that's available, but really the right person that will understand them, understand that individual's hurdles, their hangups, where they want to go, and be able to pour into that person, really foster them to be the best possible versions of themselves. And the results we've seen from that have been incredible. We've seen women fast track access to resources and increasing their salaries. People have gone on to create their own businesses, have become co-founders with the mentors that they were connected to. So we're very grateful for that. The last piece, in terms of the ripple effect of what happens from mentoring, this is important to us because that ripple effect only comes from people consistently holding the door open for one another. So that goes for people that are less experienced than you and making sure that they can navigate those landmines more efficiently versus trying to get them to, suffer the way that you may have. And even with your peers, making sure that those that you're in the trenches with are moving at the speed of light the same way you want to be, even when it doesn't benefit you directly. And that's really when you start to see that tidal wave of changing of systems internal to companies and externally, so that all women are rising with the tide and no one gets left behind.
Thank you. So moving, I would move into our next question, which is, as a direct result of the COVID-19 pandemic, the Coalition of Pediatric Health Experts have declared a national emergency for mental health crisis among American youth. So this is a question for Andrea. How is your organization approaching this current crisis for our teens and youth? How are you looking towards logic in creating sustainable resources, education, and training to help prevent anxiety, depression, and decrease suicide rates? And what can we do to empower women who are experiencing increased rates of depression and bullying?
Okay, so this is a big question.
Yeah.
But first, I just want to say to Janice, mentorship and having what I would consider see it to be it out there in the world is so important for our teens, for our youth. So before I dive into all of what you just asked me, I just want to commend you for your work and really paving the way for so many other children out there. I know for me personally, as a female entrepreneur, being able to see other women leading the way, it really empowers me to know that I can do it. So I love what you just said. And I just wanted, before I launch into mental health and suicide, I want to first give you mad props for what you just said. But yes, we definitely have a mental health crisis going on right now. And first, I want to speak to a little bit of a few stats that to support what is going on with the crisis and what's happening in the U.S. Between March and October 2020, the emergency department visits for mental health emergencies rose by 24% for children that are in the ages of 5 to 11. That's 5 years old to 11. And then they raised 31% for children ages 12 to 17 years old. And then ER visits for suspected suicide rates attempts increased nearly 51% among girls ages 12 to 17 years old in 2021 compared to the same time period in 2019. Those statistics are shocking. I don't know for all of you out there listening, but hearing those still gives me goosebumps and still brings me to my knees thinking that we are, in 2022 right now, and those statistics are still there. I got into this a little over 6 years ago with the Kindness Campaign, thinking I was going to change those statistics. And after the last couple of years we've had, those statistics are rising. So in broad strokes, how we are addressing this at the Kindness Campaign, we take a customizable approach to each of our school campuses' needs, not just offering our school campuses curriculum and product solutions, but a support system to make sure that they are implementing the Kindness Campaign solutions with fidelity, leading to higher levels of success and ultimately reducing those campus incidences. So if I take this and get to a bit more granular level, suicide is preventable, and we can improve access if we improve access to support interventions like what we have at the Kindness Campaign, which is our programming that have been shown to substantially reduce the risk of youth suicides. The Youth Mental Health First Aid USA training manual describes protective factors that support youth and facilitate early intervention for developing mental health issues. And TKC promotes several of those protective factors. So these are, some of them are self-esteem, healthy practices, feeling of control in their life, good problem-solving skills, and having just good social support systems. So in addition to all of this, social emotional learning curriculum like the Kindness Campaign provides have been shown to be an effective universal tier 1 intervention, fostering well-being and promoting skills related to protective factors that mitigate the risk of students developing suicidal thoughts and behaviors. So that was a lot. And I know that you were asking a little bit about what we're doing to about the increase of depression for, I think, what was your second question? It was for...
Yeah, so how are you looking towards logic and creating sustainable resources,
yes.
education, and trying to prevent anxiety and depression?
Okay. So, and we are tackling a lot right now in 2022. So I want to address this as well. I don't want to steal the floor, but I do want to address this because it is so critical right now more than ever. It's impacting not just teens, but I know that we're impacting all the way up through, because a lot of us are parents out there and we're tackling these issues while we're trying to work, while we're trying to, do so many multiple things. And a lot of us are being affected in our own right in trying to work. So let me talk about, here's what we know. Suicide has become the 10th leading cause of death in the United States overall. However, it is the second leading cause of death for people aged 10 to 19. And as we've mentioned, recently a coalition of health experts have declared a national emergency in children's mental health. So given where we are and using the data, our path forward is creating and innovating in this space because the numbers are demanding it. And to meet that demand, that is exactly what the Kindness Campaign has been doing over the last year, creating a metaverse where children can learn behavioral health skills, music platforms that not only teach emotional health, but help put our artist community, who've been very impacted, back to work, and app-based programs that teach daily emotional health exercises in the form of micro-learning that is easily digestible for our daily lives, which all of us, if we put into practice some daily exercises that alone will help us elevate our daily emotional muscles. When we think of how to create change in the mental health space, we first have to use basic logic of what are our learners willing to do and on what platform. And most importantly, is it fun and is it engaging? Because if we don't have that, no one is willing to do anything. When we, as an organization at the Kindness Campaign, meet our children where they are at, where they're playing, and give them an opportunity to play, the results flow from there naturally. So we can do a lot for women. We can do a lot for our children. It takes a community, it takes mentors, and it takes all of us working together. I will pause there. I could go on for hours. Apologize.
No worries. Thank you so much. That's a wonderful. And with that, I would love to, before I go into general questions, you know, if anyone has any responses to anything that everyone has spoken on today, we can keep that discussion going. So if anybody wants to jump in at any time, just please do. So next up, I just wanted to ask each of you to share your thoughts on how leaders can use logic in general on a daily basis. Nike, would you like to start?
Yes, I think thinking through social entrepreneurs to obsess about the problem you're seeking to solve. Quite often we are so entrenched mentally in the solution we want to present to our communities that it's not really singing and not aligning truly and resonating with the problem that our communities really want solved. And in thinking through that problem that we're seeking to solve, it's really important to get entrenched in what are the perspectives. So spend a lot of time with that community and just listening, asking questions, you know, suspending all your previous assumptions and what have you. What are their priorities? So that problem might be a problem, but might not be that burning problem they're willing to spend time, money, energy, effort on at this point in time. So it's really important to get very clear on that. And then what are their preferences? That could mean the platforms they prefer to have this solved, or, you know, the places they prefer to go to. I just find that a lot of the time as entrepreneurial leaders, we get quite obsessed with our solutions and don't get stuck in the problems.
I love what you're saying. And if you don't mind, I want to say, and the other piece of that is if you've already started with a solution, to be okay to listen to feedback, to know that it's okay to stop what you're doing and to reevaluate and to try a new solution and to just say, I'm quitting this solution and move on to something different. It's really hard to hear feedback as an entrepreneur and to stop.
But we have to, because there's things that happen,
right,
like pandemic, right? Even if they
right,
loved it last week, today they've moved on to something else or a different preference, different priority.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. I love what you just said.
I would also add, always be in the pursuit of learning and expanding what you understand, because there's always something more that you can learn. And when you're in that space, don't just relegate it to somebody that appears to be where you want to be. I am humbled by, so one of our interns, Jed Garcia, he's been with us for like 6-7 months now, and I am humbled by the things that I learned from him. Our SDR, Abby, she's been with our team for maybe a quarter, and I'm learning so much from her as well. And if I had the headspace of, I can only learn from people at the C-suite. So essentially, you know, the three of you, you know, there's a lot of value in learning at the peer level from the three of you, but there's also a lot from those that are younger and less experienced and coming in with a fresh slate, you know, clear eyes into how you're solving the problem for your customers. That's extremely invaluable as well.
Well said. I have something super simple that's a takeaway today, that that as we are looking to problem solve, looking to make sure we are solving the right problem and all of those evaluation tools. And we're thinking about emotions. And when emotions are high and your prefrontal cortex goes offline, which it often does for me, and my reasoning skills and language structure just stops, to do breath work. And to know that that's a go-to. Like, what is your go-to breath work that you can do? Mine is a box breathing. It's a simple box that I make, or I do it in my hand, and to help me be able to control, get my sense about me back, so that I can go into making better decisions and having overall better outcomes, really. But that is something as a tool that really is a daily for me with while I'm, advocating for myself in my role as a leader. And that is something that is everybody has access to, and it's a very important tool, your breath.
Absolutely. Definitely. So in general, I'm just going to throw this question out. What do you see, very broad, what do you see for the future in terms of advancement of women in, within your industry or others? If you want to go around and sort of, if anybody wants to jump in.
I can jump in. With what we do, we're focused on talent retention. So with the Great Resignation, it is very clear that this is an employees market. And by that,
Yes.
I mean employees are really calling the shots on how companies are structured, what the culture looks like, what those boundaries are that need to be respected. And what's thrilling for me is that the key stakeholder that's really advancing this are women. And that's incredible. Women are thinking about how they're balancing being the primary care holders for either children, spouses, elderly parents, and how that's impacting their well-being. The spaces that they're in, borderline 24 hours a day now that we're, back in this Omicron situation. Women are evaluating what it means to be professional and all of the other intersections that are critical to the makeup of who we are. And so I think from a trends perspective, we'll see a lot more in respecting women's boundaries, respecting women's voices, recognizing that women-led businesses tend to be the most successful because from birth, we're told that we have to wear as many hats as our heads can fit and as strong as our shoulders are to be able to hold those hats up, right? And that then translates into making strategic decisions faster and otherwise. I think in the next, ideally, hopefully, the next 10 to 15 years, the venture capital space will wisen up to that, and we won't have these disproportionate statistics of how much capital women are able to receive as well.
Mm-hmm.
Definitely, I agree with your statements, Janice. In my industry, we're seeing that the future is definitely female. We're seeing a fading of the patriarchy, and there's more wealth going into the hands of women in family enterprises. So 40% of global wealth today is controlled by women. But a lot of the time, they may be legal owners of the wealth, but haven't yet found their voices, haven't yet found their leadership, and haven't built enough confidence to be able to make decisions. So a lot of the time, they still defer to male family members or friends to take decisions on their behalf. But we are of the strong opinion that that's doing themselves and the world a disservice, because women tend to think more long-term and tend to think wider in terms over space. So tend to think beyond themselves and think more about the community. You tend to see women really passionate about social impact, passionate about community social issues, passionate about philanthropy, and we really need that at this hour with so many social challenges that our world faces. So I'm really passionate about the role women play in family enterprises, and we're really at a tip. It's a really exciting point in the industry where we will see more power being passed over to women, and as they become capital allocators, we will see the next generation of founders being able to work in more inclusive environments.
Yes. I would agree with both. And I might just add from emotional health standpoint and from speaking from my work, we are seeing a lot more of our groups, of our female entrepreneurial groups coming together and those networks coming in to support one another. And those are empowering women in greater droves to be able to succeed. We see that women, as they come together, they're able to lead as stronger individuals as well. And we're also seeing that they are the EQ and the leading with the heart is being widely more received, and especially in different sectors, they're looking for that point of view. They're wanting it in both all different kinds of sectors. So I think that people are, especially in my industry, we're looking to, from psychology to psychiatry to the school systems, we're needing more female empowerment and more of a stronger voice. So.
Thank you so much. And we have a little more time, so I'm going to ask, basically, I think when you're looking at the advancement of women, it's important to look back at where everyone started. And also, so with that, I would ask everyone if they want to answer, what would you say to your 16-year-old self today? And just any sort of, what brought you to this point?
Oh, that is a good one. We're all talkative until you ask us something personal here.
Sorry. Well, I ran out of.
I would tell my 16-year-old self not to be afraid to really embody the fullness of who she is and not suppress and try to blend in, and not to be scared of having to build tables where I will sit at rather than trying to squeeze into rooms where I'm not welcomed. And I so wish I knew this when I was 16, because it's taken me to like my 30s to come to this wake up moment. And I feel like now I've got this fresh lease of life to build out the life that I want to live and to pay it forward for a generation of young Black females that also have felt that they don't belong in many spaces and places. And we don't have to lose ourselves in the process. Yeah, that's what I would tell my 16-year-old self.
I would love to piggyback off of that. Thank you for kicking us off, because that's so true. I am thinking about 17-year-old, 16-year-old Janice and playing the trombone, theater geek, in a city in the DC metro area where I was maybe one of a handful of African students. I'm first generation American, but culturally I still identify as a Congolese woman in America, right? And I'm 34 now, so coming up in the 90s and 2000s, that was not as accepted as it is now, right? It wasn't as cool, and all of the things that made me different are the things that now make me successful. My ability to problem solve. So I was really into computers and graphic design, Photoshop, all of it, when that wasn't necessarily the coolest thing, but that got me my graphic design career, which then got me into corporate America, which then helped me see this monumental problem of fostering connections and mentorship for underrepresented people. And here we are, one of the first 100 Black women to raise $1 million or more in institutional funding in the US, right? So I think I would tell my 17-year-old self to really embrace and celebrate those differences and just have trust and faith in that those things that you feel insecure about are going to become your superpower in the next, decade to 15 years, but just trust the process. And I would also tell myself maybe to change up a few fashion choices as well.
Oh, you guys have a lot to tell yourself. I'm like, oh, it's so good. I think I'm constantly telling myself stuff today. I'm constantly waking up and realizing things about myself daily that there's something about I call this passing cars, and this is about self-talk that is not healthy for yourself. That if it's not good and it's not going to do yourself a justice, you just let it go like a passing car, and then you move forward. And it's the story that we tell ourselves, like, what is it, and is it helpful? Is it going to move the needle forward in your life? Is it something that that you've made up, or that it's actually a story that's going to do good for you? And then if you have your values, which I really appreciate that, Janice, that you have your trust and your how you set up your value system, and if it all aligns there, that it makes sense, that story all clicks. And so as I've grown into my body, and as I've grown into who I am today, I'm constantly adjusting to make sure that my story and my values all make sense. But if I look and reflect back to my 16-year-old self, and then I look forward to today, there's something that resonates for me, is that there's something really about me that, as I've met up with many different challenges along my journey, is that I never realized that I was as strong as I am and that I didn't break. There's moments where I should have broke, and I didn't. And I think that is, every time I don't break, it's almost like I wake up and I'm reborn again. And I realize that I'm stronger than I realized, again and again and again. I'm 48 now, and I didn't break last year. When I realized that I had to rebuild the kindness campaign all over again, because COVID basically made me pivot. I didn't break. When I started the kindness campaign, and a little girl took her own life, and I started it out of a lot of pain, and all of those things happened. I didn't break. My own daughters, all of the journeys that I go through, right? Things in the painful moments in our lives, and we don't break. So the challenge for me at 16, and the stories to tell myself, is that we are strong, we are capable. When we are together, we are stronger. When we unite around things that we all care about, when our values are united, we can do anything. So that is what I would constantly try to tell myself.
Thank you all so much. These were just the most beautiful responses, and I think we've learned so much today, and we're gonna wrap this up, but it was just such an honor speaking with you all today, and just so wonderful. Would love to keep in touch, and wish you all nothing but the best, and we really appreciate your time.
It's an honor to be here. Thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Bye.
Bye.